Welcome to Tonight We Dine Nasty.
Welcome in to the third episode of the Tonight We Dine podcast. Gerard here, along with Brent.
Hey guys.
And we're really excited to bring Rob on to the show today. We just opened up free agency last week, so there's been a lot of activity in the league. Brent, has there been anything that you've seen on the waiver wire that surprised you, that you were excited to get yourself, or saw like, oh, that's a pretty good move for a different team?
Well, I just like the amount of activity that was happening. I mean, I think everybody, just like what we've been saying all off season, people are having an incredible buy-in to the league right now. I think a lot of teams are going after a lot of different players. We've extended rosters to 30 spots now for the off season. I just think a lot of people are targeting a lot of different guys. I had several people on my list, and I know you got one with Bruce Anderson. I saw. Well, Zigbo didn't go in our league, but in another league, Zigbo went. But yeah, I targeted a few guys and these undrafted free agents, and it just gives you a chance to kind of put some guys or think about putting guys on your taxi squad. I know I picked up Ashton Dooling. No idea really who he is. He's just been a lot of the podcast guys that I listen to, fantasy football analysts look at as this like guy who came out of I think he came out of Monroe, like just a lot of college production, tremendous athlete. Like I might as well just get him on my team, see what he can do, possibly put him on the taxi squad later in the year.
Well, I think that, the expansion to 32 roster spots, there's a lot of people who have openings. Last year it was kind of definitely very like thin in the sense that you had your 20 roster spots, you had your 2 IR spots, you had 22 spots. We extended it to 27 because that was plus 5. And you really didn't have any wiggle room. It's not like you had rookies who didn't look like they were going to do anything. Like this year I was able to drop Dalton Schultz because I didn't think that he was in a situation in Dallas, and I'd much rather have somebody who was on the waiver wire to do it. Also, you had 2 picks in the draft. A couple other people had 2 picks in the draft. I think Malfi was one of them.
Yep.
I mean, my dad had 3 picks in the draft. So you expand the roster spot 5 spots, and then some trades happen in the offseason. Maybe you trade a couple players away for one player, or you trade a couple players away for a draft pick. It just opens up a whole lot more roster spots. So unlike last year where there was like a couple people that were taken in free agency because there wasn't that much wiggle room on the roster, there's been a ton of pickups this week.
I think I had like 9. I think I had 9 open roster spots, and I'm still trying to fill it. I have 1 more, and that's the other thing is I'm starting to look. I was looking around, and a lot of the teams have all the roster spots filled, which is really cool. And again, it goes back to the people are buying in, people are picking up people and filling their roster spots.
Yeah, and I think it's also really cool. I'm really liking the continuous waivers. I think that's just, it's kind of cool, just the bidding at all times, and especially in free agency, not to, to say it starts at 7 and then if you're not there at 7:02, your guy's probably gone. It's just cool that it gives everyone the ability to look it over throughout the day, see if they want to place a claim on someone, and then move on from there.
I will say that I've been frustrated a couple times in the morning. I'll look at it and then I'll forget to pick somebody up or say, man, I really wanted this guy, but for whatever reason I didn't add him to my roster the night before, and I'm like, oh, can I just go and pick him up? But of course that's the object or the purpose of the continuous waivers. We're going to have to bid every single day if we want someone. We get plenty of time to look at it.
Yeah, and you can do $0 bids, but and I'm pretty sure the website or the app is not great at showing how much money people have spent to pick up players. So everyone could have picked up someone for $0, or everyone could have picked up someone for some money. I know I've spent, I think, $11 so far.
Wow.
Well, I wanted to get Bruce Anderson.
Yeah, you knew people were going to put money on that. I think
Yeah.
Malf and Nick had kind of violated the rules before and both picked up Bruce Anderson before you could actually select someone.
And Nick had put some money on him, and I figured Malf, knowing that he was a hot market guy, would put some money on him as well. And then, I picked up Jeff Swain, and I spent some money on him because I thought that he's got a real opportunity in Jacksonville. I picked up Josh Oliver in the draft, so I'm hoping that the tight end position in Jacksonville is effective. And if it is, I've got the two guys that are going to be it. So that was my hope, and I feel like if I missed out on Swain, who showed pretty strongly in Dallas and then got hurt and missed the rest of the year, if I miss out on him, then it's $3.
Yeah, and I might end up kicking myself, but I kind of went the other way. I was like, okay, what can I do as far as the cheapest possible? So I think I put $2 on Bruce Anderson. Obviously, you outbid me there.
I got him for $8.
But wow, I don't think I would put $8 on somebody in me.
When you've got depth issues, you got to take some shots.
But I was excited about Anderson, but I was also excited. I have Ito Smith, so I was excited. Another player was Quadre Olison. They took him in, I think, the 5th round. So he's going to back up Ito Smith, and he might even compete for that job, depending on he's a different type of back. So we know Devontae Freeman, he looks healthy right now, looks like he's explosive, but he's had his injury history. So that back of whoever's backing him up is going to probably see the field, and he might be a touchdown. He's probably going to be a touchdown dependent back, and he might see the field a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a little bit about the way that we've changed the taxi squads and making it more fluid and eliminate stealing. It makes you want to grab guys who, like Allison, who might start as the 3rd string, but if Freeman goes down, especially for a long period of time, you don't have to worry about someone coming and stealing them off your taxi squad. You kind of have them safe there and can start them when it's conducive to start them, and you can keep them on your taxi squad when it's not. So it's kind of another little wrinkle to how our league is progressing, and pretty incredible that we got 32 roster spots on everybody's roster, and we're still looking to pick people up and make our teams better, and buy-in is across the league there. Someone does need to inform the NJ Giants, though, that everyone that he's picking up is retired at this point, and everyone that he's dropping, even though they might be hurt, are still in the league. So that just might be a little bit of a confusion on his end, but we'll get that all sorted out.
Yeah, somebody needs to inform.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit here and welcome Rob into the show. Our last guest, Tyler, was a fantastic guest, so Rob has a lot to live up to. So how you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little intimidated following up Tyler, and it was like a professional interview right there. But I have to say I am a long-time listener, first-time caller, and I've been following you guys since the first episode, and really like what I'm hearing.
Oh, we love it. We appreciate the follows.
All right, Rob, so why are you calling today?
One thing I do want to chime in on, though, is Tyler also has a face for radio, so he's more natural at this.
Sorry, did you say he has a face for radio?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. You're more of like a show, like a TV kind of guy, aren't you? You got to show off. The face is your moneymaker, not necessarily your words. So you got to show it off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So enough of this chit chat. This is a fantasy show, so we're going to talk fantasy football here. So tell us a little bit about your off-season strategy, kind of moving forward after last year, where you barely made it into the playoffs, and maybe a little bit more of a disappointing year than the year prior.
Well, I kind of went a totally different strategy this year than I did last year. When I first started the whole dynasty thing, I was still in the mindset of regular fantasy football team. I'm drafting guys like Marshawn Lynch, older guys, Phillip Rivers, guys that I was familiar with, guys that I knew would perform. But now, after last season, I'm looking at my roster and I'm like, geez, everyone on my team is pretty much, Lynch is retiring now. I don't know if Jay Ajayi is going to play at all. Rivers has only got a couple years left. So I'm like, I got to start in when I had Antonio Brown. He's at the tail end of his career. Mm-hmm. So I saw what Gerard did last year's draft, and how Nicky was gearing himself up to, get all these draft picks. And I started seeing how valuable the draft actually could be. Last year, I kind of disregarded the draft totally, and it burned me. So I wound up with an aging roster. So luckily, Antonio Brown, which was my one chip, I got a nice offer for him. Picked up a starting running back. I picked up a starting wide receiver. I was able to move up in the draft, put myself in a position where I could pick up a couple starters, and so I decided to kind of go that direction and try a little bit of a youth movement.
Yeah, we talk all the time about the importance of the rebuild in dynasty football. So it really sounds to me like you kind of said, I'm identifying some targets and I want to move up in this draft. So it's like you kind of identified that as a rebuild. Is that correct? Kind of you looked at your team as like, okay, how can I rebuild this for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to, and the nice thing was I didn't really have to rebuild the entire team. I had a lot of B-quality guys. I have a lot of wide receivers, some new types, and, I have a lot of running backs that are okay. They perform, but they're not, just number one guys. And what I was thinking was if I can get in a position, I had the number 5 pick already, if I get in a position where I can get a couple of early picks and get guys that are going to be legitimate starters, then that's going to be my core the next couple of years to come, and then next year I can worry about quarterbacks and other positions like that.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about it a little bit on the first episode, just how we both think that trade, the value that you got for Antonio Brown in your second round pick, was something that you really benefited from. Maybe not as much with the David Montgomery drafting or going to Chicago. That might hurt Tariq Cohen's week-to-week value, and especially since you have Mike Davis on your roster as well. I'm sure you were kind of hoping that those were the two guys that were going to be the runner and the pass catcher out of that backfield.
Sure, of course.
But you got D.D. Westbrook, who I think is going to be one of those solid. We talked about it last week with Tyler Deebo Samuel, 8 to 12 points a week, kind of solid guy, always getting the targets, not necessarily putting up huge weeks all the time, but at least being consistent for you. And Tariq Cohen flashed last year, put up some really big weeks, and that Chicago offense doesn't really show favoritism to anyone, so it's very easy that Tariq Cohen can have a lot of big weeks this upcoming season as well. And then after trading away Kerryon Johnson last year, it looked like you also tried to strengthen yourself with James White as well, giving up a 2020 second-round pick. What was your thinking going in there?
Well, I'm kind of leaning towards more versatile backs now instead of just the pound guys like the Jay Ajayi and the Marshawn Lynch guys, because, if you look at the way the history of the league went last year, everyone's getting hurt. It's just a matter of time. Whoever's carrying the ball that much is getting hurt. And I'm looking at these guys that are catching the ball out of the backfield, and they're not going to get hurt, but they have a better opportunity, I feel, to last a little longer. They're not as big as the other players, but they also aren't taking the hits up the middle. Mm-hmm. I was down to, I had an undrafted Gus Edwards starting for me last year at the end of the season, and Peyton Barber. I had, the running backs I had, I was in a position where I needed to get some kind of versatility, and I know James White had a great year last year. Cohen is on the up and coming, I think, and I was able to do something with Matt Breida again also this year, which is another back that I think is going to, he's going to perform. I know all these backfields are crowded, and it's a crapshoot. One of the guys is going to go down. It's just a matter of who it's going to be.
Exactly, and I like that idea about not to cut you off, Gerard, but I like that idea about thinking about the running backs that you have. And just like the NFL, you said that they're going to have crowded backfields. So kind of getting that PPR, even though we're a half-point PPR league, you're still getting that scat back who's probably going to get 5 to 10 targets a game as far as the pass catching, and then probably getting several carries a game as well. Maybe not scoring as many touchdowns, but getting the points through the air and both receptions and yards in the air as well.
And you talk about a back who tried to get hurt or was supposed to be hurt and miss a lot of games last year, Matt Breida, but somehow that guy played week in and week out with a bum ankle or a knee or something.
I think a torn shoulder. He had so many injuries, but continued to be the workhorse there.
Mm-hmm. And as much as that backfield is crowded, and I think that, Brent obviously has his feeling about the trade. You have your feeling about the trade. I feel like, Breida is in a little bit of a crowded backfield. Not sure if he's going to get as much of an opportunity this year if Coleman's healthy or if Coleman and McKinnon are healthy. But, he is someone who clearly the 49ers like, because they rode him hard last year, and early in the year he was the leading rusher in the league. So if something does happen, right, and those three, starting caliber running backs make it through the preseason healthy, there's a chance that one of them is going to get traded to free up some space so that either Breida, Coleman, or McKinnon, whoever the two are left, can share the load instead of it being more of a, I don't even know what it would be, like
three-headed monster.
Six carry a game kind of split with a couple catches, which would be worst case scenario for fantasy. So with you moving, kind of transitioning with that Breida trade, kind of going into you kind of talked about your offseason strategy in the draft when you had 3 first-round draft picks. Were you looking to move one of them to try to get some talent now?
Well, I wasn't looking to move anybody, but I was looking to draft 3 starters, and I needed to get what I was looking at was, okay, so, obviously running back was, of course, a need, but once, the big guys go off the board in the beginning, I didn't see anything at 4 and 5 where someone's going to be the guaranteed starter. But, with Metcalf and Hockenson, I said, okay, Metcalf's going into a situation where Baldwin's gone. Russell Wilson just signed the contract. He's going to be there a while. Big target. I'm excited about that. The guy's a freak of an athlete. So I'm super excited about picking him up. And then the tight end position is always one of those where, if you got a Gronkowski, you're always locked in there. There's like 2 or 3 guys that you can guarantee you're going to beat the other team from that position. And if this guy winds up in that position, I have him and I have Jared Cook, who's going over to the Saints, who's going to get more targets, and he's playing with a better quarterback. I feel pretty good about the tight end position, and then I don't have to worry about that position for the next several years.
Yeah, you were playing Russian roulette with the Cincinnati the Cincinnati tight ends there for a while, whether it was Eifert or Uzama. But that's
and Ethan Croft now. I had Croft for last year, and he already got hurt. And he's OTA.
Yep.
But then, so I was thinking, okay, with the 3rd pick, I wanted to do something with running back, but I kind of wanted to. I was looking at Henderson, and I was thinking, okay, he's not going to be productive. Unless Gurley, something happens to Gurley, he's not going to be productive for the next year or 2. So I wanted to use that pick for somebody that's going to be in my starting lineup, and then the trade became available, and I'm like, okay, if I can get Breida and move back a little bit and still get a running back that's going to be, a second-tier running back, but somebody that could wind up being the guy if the guy in front of him gets hurt, then it worked out well for me because I think Madison is playing behind Cook in Minnesota, and Cook's, the chances of him getting hurt are pretty good. He's not a big guy. He's gotten hurt the first 2 seasons. So, I was looking at the players, but I was looking more where the players were going, who they're playing behind, and injuries. Injuries were my focal point this season of, okay, who are they behind? What are the odds of them actually producing? And, the first one, Metcalf and Baldwin out, Metcalf in, okay, perfect. Now we'll see what happens in Minnesota if that works out. But, moving back a couple picks, picking up Rita, I didn't think it was that big of a risk. There wasn't anyone there that I was in love with at that pick. And I didn't want to just keep stockpiling wide receivers. I wanted to work on my running backs.
So I have a question, kind of
my logic there.
Yeah, going back to your first two picks and everything. I have a question about, as far as kind of targeting. Did you have, kind of going into the draft, did you have any idea of like who you wanted to target at that position at the 4 and the 5, or did you kind of say I'm just going to take the best player available at that moment, or?
Well, I was more position than I was player, and I wanted to get a replacement for Antonio Brown. He's going to replace Antonio Brown, but, a number one receiver.
Okay.
And, of course, Harry went second, so I didn't have that option. I'm looking at the board, and I don't know, something about Metcalf. Obviously the physical nature of the guy, but something about the situation he's being put in Seattle, it just feels like it could be something really good.
Well, he has straight line speed, and what Russell Wilson does best is extending the play and throwing that deep bomb, So, that straight line speed, I think he's going to be in line for maybe even potentially double-digit touchdowns, I don't know, as far as the athleticism is great. Again, route running might be an issue, but, I think every receiver coming into the league sometimes struggles with the route running and kind of just developing into different offenses.
Well, and you look at how efficient Lockett was last year. Lockett was kind of that deep ball threat last year. And the guy had a ton of touchdowns and was the most efficient receiver in football. And that's definitely a situation that Metcalf steps into, especially with Doug Baldwin going there. Who is the safety valve now in Seattle? Is it going to be Metcalf? Is he going to develop that relationship? Is it going to be Lockett because that's the one who's Wilson is more familiar with, or is it going to be Moore, who stepped up a little bit last year but didn't necessarily have that breakout? Is that breakout kind of coming? So we'll see. It's kind of an up-in-the-air situation there. The only kind of downside to that situation is they're such a run-heavy team that when you only get 20 pass attempts a game and you've got the tight ends and 3 receivers, that's only so much going around.
Sure.
It'll be interesting.
The one guy that was on the board for a while that I was looking at, which, was Jalen Hurd. And I know Gerard grabbed him right before I got Madison at 23. So that was something that I was also in talks with Nicky, because he also had Jalen Hurd. So I was kind of like behind the scenes. The next pick, we were all waiting to see who Gerard was going to take, because, I think he's going to have a nice season as well.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurd was my target from pick 1. I was thinking if Jalen Hurd makes it to 22, he's not making it past 22. So.
Like I said, I think Nick and I had pretty much the same big board, because every time he picked, I was going behind him. I'm like, there goes that guy. So it was just, one after the next. So it was kind of like I had to adjust on the fly a lot. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I like about the rookie draft, is it gives you time to adjust. It's not like you get 5 minutes and you're like, oh crap, you scroll through, see who else is available, because I was locked into this one player. Once the guy picks them, you have time to adjust, which is nice. I like the whole setup of the rookie draft. Maybe you don't need a full 24 hours, but I was out and about one of the days, so I didn't really have time to see what was going on, but it gave me enough time to digest, where we were at with everything.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, it's 12 hours, not 24 hours. That's the second time in 2 weeks that's been brought up. It's 12 hours per pick. I don't know if everyone's looking at the rule book now or actually reading something that I wrote down for this league, but it's 12 hours per pick.
And well, that's a good
It felt
transition,
like,
though.
It felt like Nick took about 23 hours at one
Nick
point.
took
Nick did
took
take a long time.
like 11 hours and 55 minutes a couple times to make a pick when he was out of the country. But
Yes, yeah.
but other than that, I think everyone was within the time frame, and it was a shame we couldn't get more picks in on that Saturday because I know that we were all ready to roll at that point. But I felt like.
But it was nice with the trades as well, though, because it gave everybody opportunity. I mean, even down towards the end, and John was a trading machine. It was fantastic. So,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good to see.
A lot of buy-in, a lot of moving and shaking this year in the draft, and that was really nice to see.
Yeah, did you like that draft format? How did you feel the draft like just overall went? Just kind of set up how we do it on the Google Docs and basically the chat that we kind of had within just text messaging.
Well, I liked the whole, like you said, once you figured out how to cross players out, because it was getting confusing. I was kind of scrolling down, and I'm like, okay, you see the player, but then you see the draft position after. But once you were crossing players out, it was a lot nicer.
Yeah. Just to go
like
back.
I say, it was much better than last year.
Just to go back, you said you were talking about who your big board was, and you were trying to replace a receiver. But was David Montgomery on your radar to pick at 1-4 if he was there, since you have the other two backs in Chicago?
Well, I thought of that, and then I'm like, to me, okay, I would have definitely secured the fact, that I definitely have the number one running back in Chicago. There's three of them. But the whole time I'm kind of neurotic where it would kill me if I'm playing him and I'm not playing Cohen and, he goes off. Or if I'm playing both those guys and I'm sitting somebody else and that guy goes off. So I was tempted to go with three running backs on the same team, but at the same time, I really wanted to get the wide receiver position squared up. I actually wanted N'Keal Harry was kind of on my big board first, but because he's me targeted a lot. But I'm happy with Metcalf. I'm actually super excited the way things shook out because, if Hawkinson's anything like I've seen or read about,
Sure.
and Metcalf works out, I got two starters for a long time, so I'm okay with that, and I can live with, and then the flip side is I'm looking at my team, and, now, Derek Carr's throwing to Antonio Brown, so I might have lost Antonio Brown, but I'm still picking up those touchdowns on the other side of it with the quarterback, and if he goes off, and, maybe I got a quarterback in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and you have Tyrell Williams, who's now Derek Carr's second option there,
Yes.
and a guy who is going to benefit from all the coverage rolling Antonio Brown's way, and hopefully sees a little bit more one-on-one, a little bit more opportunity this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where Gerard was curious if you had David Montgomery on your big board, kind of as the 4 overall pick, I was curious why you didn't take Miles Sanders, and you might have answered that because you had the wide receiver kind of selected as your go-to for the 4, but Miles Sanders was available. He was probably my 2 or 3 on my big board, so I was just curious what the differences there were and what made you choose Metcalf and Hawkinson over Sanders.
That was it. At that point, it was position. I knew I lost Antonio Brown. I really had no number one receiver. So I was just kind of focused on, I was looking at Paris Campbell, but he's going to, you also have T.Y. Hilton there. So I was, Metcalf just seemed, it just kept, I don't know if it was because of all the publicity or listening to Nick talk about him, but for some reason that guy was in my head for a while. So
Yeah. Well, Nick was taking.
might have done the best. Nick might have done the best, con job in the world. But I just kept saying his name to me. But
Well, and I know that right after the combine, Nick was like, Metcalf's my guy. I'm taking him at 1-1. But clearly he had changed his mind and had suckered you into taking him at 1-4 at that point.
That was the long con he had.
He was playing the long game there by dropping the name a couple times.
From the combine on.
Yeah, when Tom Brady retires, let's see how who's throwing to that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that you did a good job. You kind of talked about Madison a little bit, but, I think Benny Snell is a player who dominated in college on a bad offense in a tough SEC. And I think that, everyone thinks that Connor is kind of safe and in a cushy job there, but he's someone who was injured throughout last season and might not be as safe and comfortable as it looks, especially if Benny Snell comes in and starts turning some heads. His 40 time wasn't anything special, but his 40 time was pretty close to Le'Veon Bell's 40 time. And Le'Veon Bell did a pretty good job when he was a Pittsburgh Steeler, so pretty fantasy relevant as well. So I think that that's another good pickup.
Are you changing your Snail comment then?
No, I made that comment. I actually really liked Benny Snell, and kind of regret not taking him. But I like Rock Armstead a little bit better. But I do regret not being able to get him. But when I was talking to Brent in our league that we share, Brent was saying, when I said I like Benny Snell, he sent me that picture of Benny Snell, and I think it's just it's just a fun little nickname. But I'm a fan of Benny Snell, and I think that you kind of covered yourself. If Metcalf's just the run straight guy and catches ball that Russell Wilson throws really far, you got Gary Jennings later in the draft and trying to at least get a couple options in that Seattle wide receiver core where you can hopefully find someone who hits and is someone maybe more along the lines of a D.D. Westbrook and give you that consistent scoring week after week.
And what I was reading about Jennings, he's actually a pretty good, the fact that he was that far down, I think he might work out to be a pretty good wide receiver for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am a big fan of WVU football. So, Will Greer, David Sills, and Gary Jennings was what we had to watch this year, So I saw a lot of Gary Jennings this year, and I think a lot of people made the comp to Doug Baldwin. So they like his route running, they like his ability in the slot. So if anyone can replace Doug Baldwin, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe that's what they were looking at is Gary Jennings kind of fitting into that role. So you might have two potential starters on that wide receiver core for Seattle.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the future. It's a lot of moving parts. Peyton Barber may work out down there. I'm not sure, but it's going to be one of those seasons where it's going to shake out, and there's going to be injuries, and some guys are going to get chances that you didn't think, like the Gus Edwards of the world. And, if they take advantage of it, you wind up sitting with a, diamond in the rough there. I still got the Eford in my roster, even though, the guy's made of glass. So he might wind up doing something this year as well. But
I wouldn't hold your breath about that.
Yeah, they said he's doing okay in OTAs, but he's just... he's had so many injuries. It's hard to rely on him.
Mm-hmm. Maybe use
I'm looking forward to the combination of Hockenson and Cook. I think is going to be. Yeah,
you have a good 1-2 punch at tight end, and I think just along the lines of what you were saying about Hockenson, he was definitely my top tight end in this class, and I would probably have taken him 5 or 6 overall as well.
All in all, the fact that I was graded a B by draft experts should say it all, really.
Again, it was just a draft expert. It wasn't multiple
I think
people.
It was the draft expert.
It was a biased opinion from the guy who picked 2 people in the draft, one in the first round and one in the last.
Gerard's
and
not
gave
excited.
Himself a B.
Gerard's not excited about my own ranking or my own draft grade.
I understand how you give yourself a B with 2 picks. And you're not even talking about the people you picked up with the trades. We'll move on.
I think a lot of teams are going to look a lot different this year. I think Nick's team is completely changed. I think John's team is going to be completely changed. So, playing in the new divisions as well, I don't have to play against Gerard 8 times a season.
Yeah.
It seems like every year I wind up playing him on Thanksgiving and then in the playoffs. But, so I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a good season.
It's a pretty good transition. We're going to talk about your season outlook. How do you feel moving forward? Are you still thinking that you're maybe a year away from contention, or do you think that you're ready to contend right now?
Well, if Phillip Rivers plays the way he did last year, and I can just get one of these wide receivers to step into Antonio Brown's spot, which I know he's not going to give me 30 points a game. I mean, that was, but Antonio Brown also, I mean, the locker room presence on my team, it was a lot of distractions. So, him being off the team, bringing in all the youth, everyone I have is pretty much young players now. So the only one I'm kind of on the fence about is Deshaun Jackson. He's still on the roster, but there's a good chance I'm going to wind up getting rid of him just to make some room for youth. I feel good about it. I do. I don't feel like I have a home run hitter, but I feel like top to bottom, I have B, C plus D, maybe a B plus player, and then I got Phillip Rivers who could, he could light it up. He had a season like last year, he could light it up, and then, that's it. That puts me over the top.
So you're taking the
And I figure
Devils.
during the course of the year, I'll see if there's somebody out there who wants to do a trade, and Tyler, and I'm sure solidify the rest of the team.
Yeah. So you're taking the Devils' the 2013 approach after Kovalchuk retired. You're going to try to win. You're going to try to score with all four lines. And Brett, that analogy just went right over Brent's head, but
No idea.
but we'll bring it back to football now.
Who likes hockey? This is football season, right? And that's the thing. I mean, this is May. We're talking dynasty fantasy football, but the cool thing about it is everybody has hope this at this time of year. So kind of depending on what your thought is and that sort of thing, it sounds like you're really liking where you're at with your team and how your roster is constructed, and it sounds like you have hope for the future.
Well, the biggest concern to me is my own decision making, because now I have a lot of guys that are on the same plane, and you know what it's like. Sunday morning, you're like, all right, am I starting Humphreys? Am I starting Boyd? Tyrell Williams? Now I got these new guys. It's like, who's going to be the one today that's going to catch 2 touchdowns? I don't know. So I'm kind of excited about it because all those guys are kind of, I picked up Humphreys late at the end of last year. He was with Tampa, so now he's got a new team. Tyler Boyd I also picked up at the end of last year. So a lot of my roster is brand new. So it's kind of exciting to kind of reboot and take a new look at things.
Yeah, and I think that's a struggle that everyone has every Sunday, is starting this guy over that guy and kicking yourself when you lose by 5 points and the guy you decided to start scored 5 less points than the guy you decided to bench. But I think that's the reason why we play. You try to put together a good team and you try to make good decisions, and sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, but it's fun all in all.
And that's the fun about it too, is being able to at like 12:55 trying to figure out, okay, am I going to start this person or this person? And then of course, like Gerard said, if one person goes off, you have them on your bench, obviously you're frustrated, but it's just a fun way of kind of starting the week off and everything as well.
Well,
I'm just happy that I know if one guy goes down, I have somebody else I can plug in now. I have reserves. I have a deeper bench.
Yeah, and that's always like the fun and optimistic part of this off season is, going back to even you kind of mentioned my draft last year. The reason why I made so many trades and tried to get so active was because I hated my team. I looked at my roster in the off season and was like, what the hell was I doing during the regular season to let it get like this? And I did something about it and went out in the draft and I got a couple guys and felt like going into the season, my team was significantly deeper than it was, when the season ended. So it's really cool to see that. And you're kind of taking that strategy, and Tyler kind of talked about it last week, and Nick's kind of taking that strategy with all these draft picks. Everyone's got to build through the draft to find that depth, because the free agent market is just not bountiful at this time.
Mm-hmm. And I also went the direction of refusing to take any Dallas Cowboys or Philadelphia Eagles until Deshaun Jackson got signed by the Eagles, and now I'm stuck on my roster.
Now you're trying to send him away.
Yeah, now you're trying to cut
He
him.
could be cut just for that.
That is the reason why you didn't take Miles Sanders. That is the real reason you didn't take Miles Sanders.
Now we're getting to the bottom of
It
it.
has nothing to do with filling the receiver role.
Guilty as charged.
All right, Rob.
Can't do it.
I think that's all that we have for today. We've talked for quite a bit here, and we're trying to keep it to a listenable time period. But we really appreciate you joining us today, talking about your draft and a little bit about your off-season strategy. And good luck moving forward. But obviously you want to play me twice, so you got a better chance of getting a couple more wins.
Of course. Hey, good luck to everyone. As long as your interests don't coincide with my interests.
Yep. All right. See ya.
All right, talk to you later, Rob.
Hey, thanks, guys.
That was our interview with Rob. I think we're going to kind of start going through some of the drafts and reviewing some of the divisions and how we think it all went for each team in each division, and we'll probably do 4 separate episodes on that. And then as we move forward in the summer, we'll start previewing like everyone's additions and everyone's subtractions and kind of doing our predictions. But this has been fun. It was great talking to Rob. Another great interview. This is our 3rd one, and I think they just keep getting better. So we're looking forward to talking to everyone, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, take it easy. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Tonight We Dynasty. If you enjoyed our content, be sure to like and share with your friends. If you have any suggestions for us to talk about in our future fantasy endeavors, please leave a comment below and we'll be sure to talk about it. Thank you.